Welcome to Modern Wisdom with Dawn Ricci. I'm Dawn Ricci, a spiritual mentor, healer, psychic, and medium. My podcast is all about empowering you with spiritual insights on health, wellness, relationships, and careers. Join me and my guests as we navigate life's twists and turns, sharing wisdom and expanding knowledge together. Hit subscribe now to stay updated and never miss an episode. My guest today is Evidential Medium and Author Phyllis Okon, who co-founded BLS Limousine Service with her late husband almost 50 years ago. This woman wears so many hats. She's a former social studies teacher. She quit teaching to run the back office from her tiny kitchen in Syosset, Long Island. The company grew into 3 offices after her husband's death. She and her 2 sons expanded the business, totaling 11 more offices with headquarters in London. Am I correct about that?
That's actually, the headquarters are on Long Island, but we opened an office in London. So I guess it's headquarters of Europe.
That's awesome. London, one of my favorite cities on the planet. So after 55, at 55, she reinvented herself, as all great women do, to begin a writing career, and she produced 83 books. Girl, you've been busy. That's unbelievable. She has enchanted children, parents, and teachers with her talents. Her joke book, The Big Book of Silly Jokes for Kids, shot to top to the Amazon, outselling every other book for 2 months. She's currently working on one of her books as being turned into a screenplay. What was the name of that book?
That book is Grady Will and the Templeton Codex. It has a screenplay that's being shopped around right now.
Cool. I love that. Very cool. So Phyllis felt spirit calling her, and she ventured into mediumship classes, now known as Lady Phyllis, which I absolutely love. And she has this fabulous pillow in the back of her there. Her ability is to connect and give evidential information, and has offered several courses by demystifying mediumship and allowing a new generation to embrace it. Phyllis is here today to share some wisdom in sharing her experiences of handling grief, losing her husband, and diving into this spiritual mediumship, taking the leap of faith in expanding her business and being an author. Whew. You've been so busy. And God bless, losing a husband and being in business and putting that all aside and, making a legacy for your sons is amazing. So I would love for you to take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at now, and how I'm going to infuse that first question for you. How working with family influenced you in your business?
Well, we've always been connected in the family. We worked in my parents' store. They had a hardware store. So the whole family always, if someone needed help, you pitched in, you helped. I worked, I put away paint cans, whatever I did. I drove my father, we shared a car. I drove him to work, dropped him off. When I came back, I used to sit in the store. And that's how I met my husband. He owned a gas station across the street from the store. And he actually taught me how to drive when I was 16. And we saw Gone with the Wind was playing in a movie theater, and I said I wanted to see it, and he said, I'll take you, and he took me to the movies, and that night we decided we were going to get married. It would take as long as it would take, but I wanted to marry this man, and I knew it. It was, some people, you just know, when you meet that person, you just know. And he waited for me to graduate college. I graduated in 3 years, and I started teaching. He actually started driving a limo to make money to buy me an engagement ring. That's how he started. And that's how we began in this business. He was an immigrant, and everything he had to do, he had to carve out with no help. My father was also an immigrant, came here after the war, and he also had nothing. So everything we have, like when I look around, everything we have, we earned.
I just want to touch upon a little bit about when your husband passed on, obviously such grief that in your life, how can you say that you came out of that? I mean, you never stop grieving in a lot of ways, but you do come around and feel a little bit better. Tell me about that.
Well, the mediumship helped a lot. I mean, he had been sick for 15 years. He and my mother got lung cancer within 3 months of each other. Now we knew she was terminal and she died within 2 years. And it was a really kind of um, terrible kind of trip down. What he had a problem with is we were this power couple. We were traveling. We would be in meetings. We were all over the world. You know, he'd walk in, he commanded the room. I took one end, he took the other. We were the ultimate power couple. And all of a sudden, the chemo and radiation, he wanted to get here. He only got to here. And he kind of dug in his heels and said, well, I'm not budging. So we gave up our social life. We minimized, our life shrunk to just taking care of him and work. And we eliminated anything extra. He was angry. He slid into a depression. So I had 12 years with him that he didn't like doctors. I mean, in every capacity, it was a tough 12 years. But I knew he amazed the doctors that he beat lung cancer. But the last 5 years, he started to have congestive heart issues. It just was a slide into, I knew it was coming. So you
Yeah.
start grieving when you realize where this is going to end. I knew we weren't going to be that couple walking in the park and holding hands. Now we were together 48 years, every day of our lives. From the time I was 16 years old, we were together every single day. I adored him. And it was really hard. The silence in the house was really hard. I was not used to such silence. I had lived with somebody my entire life. I went from my parents' house to his house. That was really hard. So I started going to mediums a lot. I had always gone, but I started going a lot. And I would look for ways to communicate with him. And sure enough, I realized I had been getting messages and I didn't feel as alone. And it changed the nature of my grief. I still grieve for him, but I do feel him. And I feel our partnership is continuing because he helps me. I don't think I could have done this without knowing that he's bringing spirit to me and helping me help people. And he's told me as much, that we're still partners. We were partners then, we're partners now.
And I love that. I absolutely love that because that's, I mean, I understand that as a medium myself, but that's how, when we lose our family members or the people we love, and yes, you grieve for that physicalness and, like you said, being alone in the house. If you open your heart, right? I'm sure you'll agree with this. When you open your heart, everything else fires up. Your activation in your pineal gland is what, transcends your spirit, your mediumship, your third eye. I mean, all these things. And that's when the messages drop in.
Mhm.
And so I tell my clients that all the time, that yes, I love what I do, but you can do this too. And everybody does it in their own way, you
Mhm.
know? And it does become a savior in some ways. And it opened your heart into a whole new thing for you. So that's how the spirit nudged you to becoming a medium. Hey, if you haven't already done so, check out my website at dawnricci.com, where you can book your appointment with me. If you need expert guidance in finding your own spirituality, or maybe thinking about getting back on track with health and well-being, then let's get to it with customized mentoring programs for your personal development. You can find all the information you need at dawnricci.com. Now let's get back to the show.
It did. He passed in 18. And so going from medium to medium to medium, and the last 3 mediums I went, they all were saying, you could do this, you could do this. And again, I thought you had to be born with the gift. I didn't understand that, when people say to me, you're gifted, I say, no, I'm not. I'm a gifted medium, but I'm not gifted. I'm gifted in that I've learned how, in the same way that you learn how to do something, but I'm not gifted. I don't want to call it a skill, but you have to learn. Everybody has the ability to do this. And we talked about being businesswomen or business people, whatever you want to call it. And I realized how much intuition I was using when I'd go into a meeting to know when to push it, like what I said originally, know when to retreat, when not to push your truth. That's all intuitive, knowing they're not listening to you. Pull back, like you said, state it with poise, give your opinion, but pull back and don't lose your cookies over it.
I
So
know.
so that's all intuitive. So
Yeah.
people are using and taking all the day, then COVID happened. And of course, transportation, nobody was traveling. So I found myself holding the company together. We were down to 35 people and holding it together. We had daily Zooms. But in the evening, I was taking courses with all these different mediums. And what I learned was that we receive information so many. This It's not just clairvoyance, there's
Mhm,
clairaudience, there's claircognizance, there's
mhm.
clairsentience, there's clairgustance. We have all these different ways that we're receiving information. We have to slow our thoughts, just what you said, like open up and turn on the antenna and
Yeah,
and realize this is not mine. This is not, oh, well, this is mine. This is mine. This isn't mine. And that's basically what it is, just snatching those images or sounds or feelings and saying, this doesn't belong to me, so it must belong to you. And
right.
that's
Yeah,
what happened. And then
yeah.
I ended up teaching full circle. A friend of mine said, you should teach. And I said, no, I don't think I can. And she said, try it. And I have over 41 students at this point.
That's amazing. Well, and yes, of course you can teach. I mean, you're showing people what you've learned and what you know. I mean, that's how we pass it on, right? That's how we pass it on. It's funny because I lost my parents a couple of years apart, and my mom never knew this is what I could do. But I'll tell you one thing, I used to get caught doing everything when I was a kid. And you know what? That's because she was intuitive. She had she was able to do what I do too. But yeah, I thought about that. And she helps me now. She's always around me now. I feel her all the time. And sometimes I say to her, listen, don't be like bugging me today, but yeah, I just love it. I love it. I feel like you feel much closer to the people you love and that you miss, and that they actually help you with decisions that you have to make in your life too, you know?
Mhm.
So would I be safe to say that first 9 months for you was really tough?
It was really hard, even though I thought I was prepared. I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared. Um, I didn't miss the end of our life together because it was horrible watching him
Right.
deteriorate, watching this man who could do everything by himself. He was so strong and clever and funny and all those different things. Watch him deteriorate where he couldn't do anything. And then what had happened was I had gone to a medium, and I had gone to this medium every year of my life. And it gets to a point where you sort of know. I know he doesn't hold on to it, but I know he knows me. And I saw a look in his face and I said, what do you see? And he said, nothing. I said, you saw something. And he said, I saw you in widow's weed. So I knew it was coming. And he
Yeah.
told me it was going to be within the next 2 years. So we get to the end of the 2 years and it's New Year's Eve. It's a quarter to 12. And my husband wasn't coming up the steps. He couldn't go up the steps, even though we put in a chair for him. He was stubborn. So he would sleep on the couch. And I went up, it was a quarter to 12, and I said, but he was wrong. He beat the odds. We're going past the 2 years. Like 5 to 12, I hear my husband screaming, come down, come down. And he was having a seizure. And he should have died that night. The hospital, unfortunately, the hospital saved him. And he ended up being intubated and he lived 32 days.
That's,
The
I'm
loneliness.
sorry that you had to endure that. Um, for some reason, that lesson, that experience will help you with with people going forward. I truly believe that. And I hope that's what you'll feel, now going forward. Let
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Let's turn it a bit, okay, to something incredible. 83 books? Holy crow. Okay, and let me just say, that's before like AI and this and that. This woman wrote 83 books. She's got her own AI going on in her head.
Well,
Tell us about your favors. Tell us about how you decided to do this. Tell us how the magic that happened that to crank out those books.
what happened was I lost my mom and I was depressed. I was missing her. She was my buddy. We used to go to see the ballet every Wednesday. I would see her every day of the week. She was control of our company. We spent a lot of time together. We were on the phone constantly. And again, she died of lung cancer, and it was very hard to watch her deteriorate. She had a brilliant mind, and it was sad. And we had lost my father 5 years before that. Suddenly he died in an airport. So it was like pieces were falling off. And I was really, I was sad. And then I don't normally, I'm usually very optimistic. So my son said to me, Mom, write a book. And so we kind of held a contest. And I came in the next morning with a book called Captain No Beard, An Imaginary Tale of a Pirate's Life. And it was based on playtime with my grandson. And so Create Space was a self-publishing platform, and now it's KDP. So
Mhm.
they found me, my two sons found me an illustrator, and I got occupied, I got sucked in with creating the book, the whole creative process. Well, 8 months after I write this book, I get a call from Create Space that they say, do you know that you were named to Kirkus's Review Best of 2012, which was, they were more, I had no idea what it meant. So for an indie author to be labeled one of the best indie books created that year was a big deal. So my husband said to me, do it, write more. So at that point, I had another grandchild. I had dedicated that book to one grandson, and now I had a granddaughter. So I said, well, I've got to write a book to dedicate to her. And what happened was a series kind of developed on the antics of my grandchildren. So that was Captain No Beard. But then we were in Vegas. We were walking around. We had opened in Vegas and we spent a lot of time. And my grandson asked me to explain what the Eiffel Tower was. What's that? What's that structure? So, how do you explain that to a 4-year-old? How do you explain what is the Eiffel Tower? It's an iconic image that you associate with France. So I created a series called If You Were Me and Lived In. And I just started doing countries that piqued my interest. I started with Mexico, and then I did Norway, and I did Kenya, I did Turkey. I was just picking countries, and I would do 10 basic things that any child should understand about the culture. What you would call your mother, if you lived in the capital, what the capital would be,
Oh my
what you would eat, it was like almost like a travelogue show, but very slimmed down for 4 to 6 year olds. Well, the homeschool crowd embraced it and said more. So then I did a series on cultures, on historical periods for older children. So I did ancient China, I did the Middle Ages, I did the American West, I did 10 different time periods. But my grandkids were increasing. I kept having more, they kept having more, and they were growing. So as they grew, I read with them. So now I'm reading early chapter books. So I wrote some early chapter books. So with each grandchild, I would explore new ways to write. So I was writing as Carol P. Roman. Carol is my mom's name, Roman was my dad's name, and I felt it was sort of a memorial to them. And I was writing and it was fine, but I decided I wanted to do some adult. I wanted to see if I could write adult fiction. So I wrote as Brit London because I didn't want to confuse with children's titles. So I did the sexy stuff as Brit London.
God.
And that was a lot of fun. And what I particularly love is that the books are all award winners, and the homeschool crowd, not the adult books, but the homeschool crowd loves my children's books. They still sell to this day. I manage my son's books. He's a screenwriter, and I manage his books. He writes under 3 different imprints, and I do the publicity for him. And 2 of his books now are being scouted for movies. He wrote this.
That's so cool. So I'm going to back up for a second. My mouth is dropping because I was on a trip last year. We were all through Europe, and somebody that I met like on the trip, because you make friends, and I think we were in Turkey, and she says, "Oh my God, I have to get the book, blah 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 blah, that was for Turkey because this author does every country." It was you.
It was me, yeah.
And so, yeah, she was on a hunt to find the book. She said, no, because her granddaughter kept texting her, Nana, did you find it? Nana, did you find it?
Yeah, no, the
Oh
books,
my gosh. Phyllis,
it's,
I love that. You are so multifaceted, multi-talented, amazing, amazing. Oh, just so amazing. Look, people, what we can do with our lives. Like, we don't have to get stuck into one thing. You don't have to be labeled. You are an incredible inspiration
thank
to
you.
women. I'm so honored and happy that we actually got to talk. Just something just occurred to me. Little did you know you were probably channeling those books.
Yeah, that's what the very first lesson of my class is about automatic writing.
Yeah,
And I will tell you that several of the books that I would write, it was almost as though when I would go back and read it, it didn't feel like it was mine.
yeah,
And I will tell you, it's particularly the adult fiction, because I started the adult fiction started out, I was with a group of indie authors and we decided to do an anthology. And I said, because I dive right in, I created the town of Bulwark in Georgia, a fictional town, and everybody was going to do something. We were going to publish it for Halloween. Well, within 2 afternoons, I had my book. It's not a big book. It's a small book, but I had the book. And it started out as it started out as a vampire story, and somehow it became like a riff on Hansel and Gretel, an adult version of Hansel and Gretel.
yeah.
And I don't know where it came from, but I can't watch horror. I don't read horror, but I write horror. For some reason, I'm able to write horror.
That's because you had a past life in it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
And
why you can't watch it, because you probably lived a past life of a horror situation. Yeah.
and I can't tell you how many times that's happened when I've traveled, that I walk into a place and I feel that deja vu feeling.
Yeah.
So they never wrote their stories. I published mine. The book won awards. It did well. It sells. And then I was approached by another group of authors, and we churned out 10 or 11 sequels to this book. And everybody took the characters that I invented and then wrote a story about them. And two of those are mine. So I took one story, I wrote it a week after my husband passed. It's called The Knowing, and it's about how we are connected to our loved ones through other lives. And they go back and forth from the Civil War to the present. And their love affair is actually completed in the present. And then I had one character that I felt bad that I kind of made her into kind of a Jessica Rabbit kind of person, and I felt bad about it. It felt judgy, so I wrote The Devil and Dana Dalton, and I love that book because it's really about, we judge people based on what we see, and you really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It's really an important book, and it doesn't get the notice that it should get. But I love the cover. I love everything about that book.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This was like so inspiring, and I just loved our time together, honestly. Um, before we, in your wisdom, goodness, wisdom, um, please tell the audience how they can find you, take classes with you. I might pop up in a class. How about that?
I would
But
love that. You're more than welcome. I started with one class and we finished the class and they said, no, do another. And we went to level 2. And then when we finished level 2, they said, we want another class. So I did level 3. And when we completed level 3, I told them, look, I've taught you everything I know. And they said, yeah, but we don't want this to end. So I created a Patreon. So I have a Patreon the first Wednesday of the month. And what I do is I bring in experts to expose them to all the different ways that they can use their talents. So every month we had a pet communicator on. Last month we had a grief counselor, which it was such a good class because we're dealing. A lot of people think this is fun, it's entertain, and we are dealing with feelings and grief. We bring closure and healing to people. Yesterday I did a podcast, and when we completed the podcast, this girl was not expecting this. I read her, and her father was there, and she was estranged from her father. And she said she never expected this to happen. And it brought her closure that she just couldn't be reached. Mediumship is so much more than talking to people that have passed on. It's delivering messages. One of the most important messages is don't relegate my life to the last 5 minutes. My life was all that and more. If you weren't there at the end, it's okay. Think about all the days you were there. But in any case, you can reach me on Facebook. I post constantly about different aspects of this type of service that we do. www.ladyphyllis.com.
Okay.
And I just put up a bunch of classes, but I wanna do something with you, Dawn. I wrote this book, 366 Affirmations and Inspirations to Live By. I always have to look at the title because I don't remember it. I'm going to ask you to pick a page 1 to 366, any number, but don't think, just pick a number, don't think. And
167.
167, and let's see if there's a message for you that resonates with you.
Okay.
Okay, so I feel that this is coming from your mom, who does assist you. And she says, I will let go of what doesn't serve me to create space for new possibilities. So if you're holding on to something that's not serving you, she's telling you, let it go to make room for all this new stuff that's coming your way. You pick that page. You pick that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I love that.
I use this in readings,
Thank
and every time people pick that page, and it resonates just as it resonated with you. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm sure you know I haven't heard the last of me, but again, I just want to thank you so much again for coming, for sitting with me. It was just such a joy, and who knows, maybe we'll do something live together.
I would love that. It was nice meeting you.
Yes, thank you.
Hey there, so before we head over to the next episode, I wanted to let you know about my show named Beach Bench Medium, and it's on my YouTube channel. As I passed by beach benches that line the boardwalk, I felt the nudge from Spirit to bring family members to their bench and give them a reading. If you have a bench dedicated to someone you lost, then get in touch with me at hello@dawnricci.com. I would love for you to be on the show. Thanks for listening.